Viewer discretion is advised. Tata, one of the most popular yet misunderstood war songs out there. I briefly talked about it in one of my videos, though I can't remember which one it was. While everyone is focused on that song, the album from where it comes from is way more interesting, especially if you're willing to put in the time to look into its contents. I will say, while Rat i Mir is not one of Baya's best war works, that would have to go to Pobedice Istina, released the following year. It certainly is one of the most ambitious works he has ever released during his wartime career. I've heard from someone, at least to their recollection, that this was supposed to be a big album. We're talking Kockar Bestreche and Rat i Mir literally into one mega album. If your pattern recognition hasn't kicked in yet, Rat i Mir literally translates to War and Peace. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense, because on one side, you'll have the Rat or War side as just the patriotic songs, and the Mir part, or in this context, the love songs, on the other side. If I'm getting this correctly, production issues happened, and then they ended up making two different albums. And honestly, it would explain why the second VHS is called Rat i Mir instead of Najväčší hitovi 2. Speaking of Najväčší hitovi, hey, can you fix this, please? It's been a couple years, you're confusing the fans. Come on, man, this is like one of the most embarrassing things that you have. Oh, shit! We won't be going into Kockar Bestreche, as honestly, those are all love songs, and I don't need to explain the concept of love questing to you people. As for Rat i Mir's content, well, it sure is something. Let's start off with the songs that I don't really have much to say about. Greshnik, the last song, and wow, it really does go out with the bang. Not a literal bang, that goes to another album. The song's premise is quite simple. It's just about how average people have no one powerful to help them out, which is something that I clearly did not steal. The song's message was so universal that it reached number 4 in the 1994 music charts, which is pretty impressive. And it makes me wonder if the Kininja himself had any more songs that he wrote in his wartime era that actually charted. The song was also written in collaboration with Lazo Paichin and is actually one of 3 songs to be written in collaboration with the guy. Oh, I almost forgot. There's an account that says that when they were leaving Sarajevo, the song would often play every now and again on the bus, which is pretty interesting and also very depressing. Dražo, a song that originally appeared as Ustani Chicha Dražo on the Boro-Srbin debut album Ja sam Srbin. That song, by the way, uses an alternate instrumental version of Kad sam bio mali and is actually sung in the tune of Kad sam bio mali. I wish I was joking. Before anyone accuses anyone of stealing, Baya actually worked on the album, but it makes me wonder if he was creatively bankrupt at Nina Trade at the time. I guess we'll never know. This song, if it's not obvious enough, was probably written in response to the political chaos that Yugoslavia had at the time. And speaking of which, that music video, it shows actual protest footage. Like, whoa, this just got a little too real for a Yugo war music video. I mean, how dare they have actual social commentary? Come on, where's that 90s cheesiness? How am I supposed to enjoy this when there are no silly little low-budget edits? Jedo, a song Lepi Micha loved so much, he not only covered it the following year, but also in 2007 and one more time on TV Duga Plus, I believe in 2012. This song was written in collaboration with Lazo Paichin, although the version that Lepi sings, Stari Chetnik, is written solely by Mirko Paichin, the real name of Baya Mali Kininja if you didn't know. And this raises a chicken or egg question. So which one came first? Leave your response in the comments below. Now, before anyone accuses anyone of stealing, Baya was good friends with Leppy. As a matter of fact, when Baya was first starting out, he would frequent a restaurant owned by Leppy's cousin. And I'm speculating that Leppy worked there too in Sarajevo before the war broke out. To address the elephant in the room, we're actually not too sure if this is based off of a real person or not. Whatever interview that might have said it is currently lost media, or he just publicly hasn't stated it. Now, don't get me wrong. He does mention in Braćo Moja Preko Okeana a grandfather in Chicago. Then there was also Kad sam bio mali, where he references in Chicago Mai, as well as some Braća sa dinare song, referencing a grandfather that says, hey, if you need money, I'll send it over. Oh, and also in Komunjare, there is a grandfather Krstan that is an anti-communist. So maybe Krstan is this Chetnik grandfather who left to the States permanently because the partisans were looking for him? Yeah, I don't know. On a side note, I think Jedlo is one of the contributing factors as to why people will often transcribe Chuti Uiko as Ovde Jedlo instead of Ovde Chedo. Now, the only reason why we know about this is because of an interview that someone had recovered. So, to Balkan Mapper, thank you for recovering this interview. Otherwise, it probably would have been undocumented media, I suppose. I believe this caps off all the songs that I don't know too much about. So, let's move on to the songs that I have a little more information on. At least, speculative information on. Dealer, the first song of the album, and man, what a start! I don't think you need to be a native speaker to understand the contents of Dealer. It's literally social commentary on the hyperinflation of Yugoslavia. But there's actually just a smidge more to this. You see, inflation was really bad in Yugoslavia. Like, really bad. We're talking inflation rate going from 0 to 100 in just 8 hours. Overnight even. Now, to all my fellow Americans, to understand the weight of the situation, the McDonald's in Yugoslavia had to switch out the lettuce of their Big Macs to cabbage. And they had to remove the tomatoes. Wait a minute. That's actually a good thing. I mean, I understand if you need a tomato or two in like a number 9 or a number 2, a number 3, or even the McCrispy or a McChicken. But come on, tomato in the Big Mac? The Big Mac sauce is pretty good. Why do you want to cover up the taste? Huh. Kinda interesting how Yugoslavia was the pioneer in the modern Big Mac. Now, I know, people couldn't afford anything, but, you know, at least one good thing came out of this?
Oh, brother!
In all seriousness, people just couldn't afford things ever. Savings that had been stored away in mattresses or safes were now pretty much useless. Wallpaper even. With such great devaluation of the Yugoslav dinar came a great opportunity. The black market. Oh yeah, there was a black market to exchanging more valuable and stable foreign currencies. The most popular one was the German mark, which is why Baya says that he has this many marks instead of I have this many dinars. However, because of the inflation rate being so unstable, the exchange rate was also unstable. Today, you can exchange 1,000,000 dinars for 10 marks. Tomorrow, only 5. And the next day, maybe half a mark. So it all makes sense as to why Baya in the song has less and less marks in such a short span of time. If you want to look into this subject more, I have 2 papers down in the description that you can check out in your free time. Now, aside from a history lesson, there is actually a possible biographical aspect to this. As we've established, there were black market currency dealers that were at least trying to give better rates for German marks, and one of the locations that they frequented was Knez Michailova. Now, take a look at this picture. This was posted to Baya's official Instagram not too long ago. Aside from the obvious, yes, we know, that's the founding members of Bracia sa Dinare right there, that's not important. What is important is where this picture was taken. And once you know it, it's Knez Mikhailova. There's an article out there that also says that he went to Knez Mikhailova during the war, but I can't find it and I can't remember it. But if I do, here it is on the screen right now, and it'll be linked in the description below. It's not impossible to say that maybe he contacted them, especially for traveling all across Europe. In the song, there's also the lyric Stari drugar moj, and that might have some truth to it. You see, a YouTube comment alleges that this is based off of a real friend, though I haven't found any sources on it. But if true, this album just got a little more real. I mean, think of it this way. You've seen this guy around in school, he's an unassuming kid. When the war breaks out, you meet him again and boom, he's doing black market sales. I mean, wow, that's one hell of a reality check. Speaking of real events, enter Zatvor. I know that in a previous video, which I cannot remember for the life of me, I did say that Zatvor was about Serb victimhood. Now, upon doing my research, I will formally retract that statement, which doesn't say much, considering that I said that I did not agree with that analysis. Actually, initially, I was going to keep that in the video and just start asking questions as to why this guy put it in the album. But then, I found a YouTube comment that led me down a, admittedly, very short rabbit hole, but a worthwhile one that I'd share with you guys that might put the puzzle pieces together finally. In March of 1993, Baya encountered some unexpected turbulence. Leaving Yugoslavia wasn't a problem. Going to his connecting flight to Zurich, on the other hand, oh boy. You see, for whatever reason, the Hungarian officials either were punking him or fucked up pretty bad and held him there in customs for what felt like forever. And then they let him go when the last trains went. So he had to go in some sort of shitty car that was probably falling apart and missed his flight by 15 minutes. Don't worry, he made it to Switzerland, but he missed his show. And that's where our story would end. But wait, there's more. While in Switzerland, he was, I believe, either still in Zurich or in St. Gallen, where he met up with Gordan Krajišnik, a good friend of his, and the Superton CEO, Svetin Todorovic. Now everything seemed to be okay until I believe some crime happened where either some agents or diplomats were killed. But whatever the case, they were gang stalking Baya. First they asked for receipts for the purchased CDs, and then they were asking for papers? I do recommend reading the entire article because I'm not going to explain beat by beat what happens. All you need to know is that Baya, without any proper due process, was detained at some prison in St. Gallen. Anyways, while detained, they stripped him naked and then TSA'd his ass. Wait, no, hey, I'm not saying that he got a diplomatic prostate exam. That's crazy. I just... Let's move on. The Superton CEO was also detained in the office, which makes me wonder... Nope. Not doing that today. Moving on. All that you need to know is that he was cold and furious because they ended up finding nothing, and then they just let him go like they didn't do anything. And this entire encounter, the Hungarian customs, the gang stalking by authorities, it was so Jover at this point. He was fuming with anger. How dare they treat his people like this? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the likely story as to how Zatvor was created. Which makes a lot more sense now. Unfortunately, the music video kind of ruins this because, I get it. Yugoslavia didn't have a great economy, and Superton probably didn't have the biggest budget. But I feel like a song like this maybe should have just stayed in audio format. Speaking of the music video, I don't know if this specific footage is actually footage of the prison he was detained in. Most likely not. But if anyone knows where this specific location is, please let me know in the comments. I'm dying to know. Speaking of dying to know something, I think I've put this song off for way too long. The moment you've been waiting for. I know. Suggesting that Tata had a 3D 5Me meaning? That's ridiculous. And you know what? I agree. It's not that deep. But because the foreign masses tend to spread mimetic misconceptions like a malignant tumor, I have to do the due diligence to set the record straight on a song that doesn't really need it. Now, believe it or not, this song is not about condoning the act of committing war crimes. Whoa, I know, crazy. As a matter of fact, it's there poking fun at the negative perception of Serbs at the time. If anything, this is more like playground banter. You know what? Yeah, my dad was a war criminal, and he even called it Bosnia while he was at it, so up yours! It bears repeating. Playground banter. And if it doesn't go through your head, clearly you were never bullied and super sheltered, or you were bullied, just not bullied enough. I know that Baya's work is somewhat biographical, depending on what you're listening to, but I don't think it really counts for Tata. I mean, we do know that his brother and his cousin fought, and I believe it was also his father that fought. But this song isn't like Jovo or Jedo or anything that's really dedicated to someone, really. I'm just baffled though, because how did we, as a society, have such low media literacy to the point where we are compartmentalizing and compressing information incorrectly? Oh wait, I'm so sorry, I forgot. The average war music enjoyer is an iPad baby, so that explains a lot. It bears repeating. This song is essentially playground-style banter. To take this seriously and to fearmonger over it is the equivalent to believing that alicorns exist. If your mind still hasn't changed and your interpretation of the song is like that of the average war music enjoyer, well, I've got great news for you, buddy. You see, application deadlines to your local preschool are closing soon, so you better get on top of that. I've heard that their finger painting classes are excellent in developing essential motor skills. So, I'd get to that as soon as possible, my friend. On the topic of personal circle, if you're familiar with Baya's songwriting, you might have noticed that three names will often crop up. No, not Gubin, Psychovic, and Provo, silly. Those are town names. I'm talking Lazo, Novo, and Jovo. And we know at least the first two. Lazo is Baya's cousin and also a songwriter who fought in the war. Novak is Baya's younger brother who not only would get his own song earlier in the year, but would also sing with his brother the following year. But what about Jovo? Who is that guy? Well, in Yoshtenishta Nezna, his name would be revealed to us. Jovo Kalaba. He was a source of moral support in Yoshtenishta Nezna, and in Ra'imir, Bayo and Lazo would make a song dedicated to him, where along with Novak, reveals that he was stationed in Chabrazlia, and like Baya and his family, was from Gubin. As for his fate, he actually survived the war, with the mention of him as a source of moral support in the 1999 Renome albums Kara Islonchara and Biti Il Nebiti. We don't know much afterwards, his trail kind of goes cold, but we can infer that he just became a private citizen for the rest of his life. I don't know if he's alive or dead, but Baya hasn't said anything, so I guess we can assume that he's still alive. You'll notice that Ra'imir is one of Baya's most personally involved albums. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it other than Zbogom Oruże, but even then it rivals it in a very different way. But before we do conclude this analysis of Ra'imir, you'll notice that I've omitted one song. And you know, I've actually saved the best for last. As we've established, Tata is both unnecessarily and unintentionally controversial. But what if I told you that there was a song that was deserving of some sort of controversy? If your process of elimination hasn't kicked in yet, I'm talking about Gavrilo. And if you're wondering why it hasn't been controversial at all these past 30 years, it's simply because of language and cultural barriers. Let's get into it. On the surface, you can already discern what the song is about. You know, the guy who was often blamed for the start of World War I. You know, I'm not saying that because I'm a Serb sympathizer. I mean, for fuck's sake, the guy called himself a Yugoslav, and, you know, there was way more to the start to World War I than... sidetracked. Let's get back on topic. There's something very special about this song. Unlike Jedo and Dražo, where it is dedicated to someone, this is a cover of a poem that Gavrilo wrote while serving time. Wow, who would have known that Baya would go as so far as to cover a poem written by some guy who killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand? Me? But I'm built different. Unfortunately, like Moram Plovi jedna mala barka on 1992's Stante Paše I Ustaše, he credits himself as the sole songwriter, instead of using something like Narodna, Tradicional, or even Obrada. This would be a problem until 1995, where he finally uses some form of that credit in Zbogom Oruże. Speaking of which, Za koga sam ratoval, you see, I have a copy of this album. Let's see what it says. Yeah, you see that? You see that? It says Tradicional. So whoever told me that he bought the rights to the song in order to use the melody? Back on topic, the poem that Baya adapted is known as Umiranje, though it also goes under the more generic Zarajevski Atentat 1914 and Pesma Gavrila Principa in some sources. Friends of his somehow snuck out the poem and published it posthumously in 1919 in the newspaper Zvono. By the way, this newspaper is not on the internet and is currently lost media, which happens a lot more than you think. The poem went like this. Tromo se vreme vuče I ničeg novog nema. Danas sve kao juče, sutre se isto sprema. Al pravo je rekao pre, Žerajić Sokosivi. Ko hoće da živi nek mre, ko hoće da mre nek živi. I mesto da smo u ratu, gde bojne trubi ječe. Evo nas u kazamatu, na nama lanci zveče. Svaki dan isti život, pogažen, zgnječen I strt. Ja nisam idiot, pa to je za mene smrt. According to one source, there was more to this poem, but anything that he would have written on is lost forever. Actually, he had more songs, but whatever they were, he took to his grave, aside from some etchings found on some wood in his cell. Wow, a poetic assassin. Who would have thought? Baya's adaptation of Umiranje, now known as Gavrilo, was one of the closest adaptations that he has done to date. I don't think he's done a one-for-one remake until 1997 with Nedirajte Njega's Bez Zavičaja. No, I did not say the N-word. We're all adults. I mean, God, we're all adults, right? For reference, Pieske idem iz grada went from a song about a man who confesses to his wife of an extramarital affair while working abroad to a heckin' wholesome tale that talks about how there's light at the end of the tunnel and we're all gonna make it. God, that was cancer. I'm never doing that shit ever again. Izzy Nata went from a song about society to a song on how Baya's gonna sing out of spite and he'll win because his songs will always be sung as Serbs continue to exist. Za koga sam ratovao is related to its song in melody only, and Moram plovi jedna mala barka has 4 verses instead of 5 and has an alternate ending. To cap off the segment, it's interesting to know how close we were to losing the original version of Moram plovi jedna mala barka. Had it not been for the vigorous efforts of the Serbian diaspora and the community effort that Milan Micho Petrovic initiated in order to preserve these songs, we would be singing Baya's version not knowing that it was not the original version. It makes me wonder if there were any other Chetnik songs that had been altered in the 90s, and which ones that were left on the cutting room floor that Geja didn't get around to covering. It seems that we have reached the end to my little research project. While Raimir isn't the best of Baya's war work, it certainly is one of the most personally involved and the most ambitious work he has ever released to date. And it's a shame because we're never ever gonna get anything like this ever again. If you've noticed the way the industry has been going, it's a lot more easier to do music than it was years and years ago. And with that, digital streaming platforms have incentivized individual tracks to be used as a part of a playlist more than just listening to a compiled work. This leads us to a dilemma of today, because despite Baya's wishes of making another album, he has released only singles, which I'm pretty sure are good, but probably don't have the same quality of work as 30 years ago. Before anyone gets their panties in a twist, it's just normal for an artist. That is a normal trajectory to hit a peak and never return. Even then, in Baya's primetime era, which was, the 90s, it sparked and then dissipated. By the late 90s, he was starting to really falter. As with most of these videos, I tend to ask a question at the end. So the question of the day is the Chewan jacket. There's something on the back, it's like a patch or something, and I'm pretty sure it's not blank. So if anyone has all sorts of pictures or knows the whereabouts of Baya's Chewan jacket, please help me out. I want to make a replica of this jacket, okay? I am dying to know.